All right, everyone, get ready for a deep dive that's a little different this time. Today, we're turning the focus inward and exploring a core Buddhist principle, understanding yourself as a pathway to understanding others.
It's so true. So often we try to fix our relationships by focusing on the other person. Like we need to crack some code.
Totally. It's like we forget that understanding begins at home with ourselves,
Yeah.
right? So how does Buddhism guide us in this self-discovery? Is there a set process?
Well, imagine trying to see the world through a window that's absolutely filthy, covered in dirt and grime.
Yeah, your vision's going to be pretty distorted. You're not going to be seeing things clearly.
Precisely. Buddhist thought uses this analogy to describe how our unacknowledged feelings and thoughts can distort our perceptions, particularly in relationships.
Oh, I can totally relate to that. Like, one time I was convinced a friend was ignoring me, but it turned out she was swamped with work. I was projecting my own insecurities onto the situation.
A perfect example. That's where mindfulness comes in. It's all about noticing your thoughts and emotions without judgment, almost like watching clouds drift by.
So it's not about suppressing your feelings or pretending everything's okay.
Definitely not. It's more about creating a space, a pause, between feeling something and reacting to it. And meditation, that's one way we can develop this ability to pause, to choose a more skillful response.
So instead of instantly snapping at someone when you're stressed, you take a breath and say, okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. That doesn't mean I need to lash out.
Absolutely. That shift in perspective can make such a difference. You're responding with awareness, not just on autopilot.
I'm starting to see the connection here. But how does this tie in with another Buddhist concept? Loving kindness.
Ah, yes. Loving kindness, or metta in Pali, is about developing a deep sense of goodwill, both for ourselves and others. And here's the interesting part, Buddhism suggests that you can't truly love others unless you've cultivated that love for yourself first.
I never thought of it that way, but it makes so much sense. If you're constantly putting yourself down, needing validation from others, it's got to be tough to show up authentically in your relationships.
Exactly. That's where meditation comes in again. It helps you become aware of your needs and patterns, your strengths, even your weaknesses. As you grow more comfortable with yourself, you rely less on external validation, and that allows for a more genuine connection with others.
So self-awareness is the foundation for building those stronger, healthier relationships.
Precisely. Your inner world is reflected in your interactions. If you're carrying around a lot of anger, that'll show up. But if you're cultivating patience and compassion, those qualities will naturally flow outward into your relationships.
This is fascinating. But, I think a lot of people, myself included, hear meditation and immediately think, I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Or that's not for me.
I understand. That's a common reaction, and it's something we'll delve into in the next segment. We'll explore ways to integrate mindfulness and meditation into everyday life, even if you've never meditated before.
Welcome back. Before the break, you mentioned how so many people feel like they just don't have time for meditation.
Yeah. I think we have this idea that it has to be this big, formal thing, like you need to sit in silence for hours. I mean, who has time for that these days?
I totally get it. Life gets busy. But here's the thing. Meditation, it doesn't have to be this, huge event. It can be as simple as just taking a few conscious breaths during your day, or even just noticing how your feet feel as you walk, really tuning into the sounds around you.
So it's more about just bringing that awareness to everyday moments.
Exactly. And those small moments, they can have this ripple effect, They make you more present, less likely to just react without thinking in your relationships. It's like working a muscle. The more you do it, the easier it gets to find that calm, centered place, even when things are chaotic. Okay, I can see how this could actually work. But we were talking about some pretty powerful qualities like forgiveness and compassion. That seems like a pretty tall order, to just cultivate that through a few deep breaths. How does that actually work?
You're not forcing it, and it's not about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about understanding that those qualities, they're already inside you, like seeds that are just waiting to sprout.
So the seeds are already there, and meditation is kind of like the water and sunlight that helps them grow.
That's such a great analogy. Think of it this way. When you're stressed, you're reacting out of fear or anger. It's like you're seeing everything through that dirty window we talked about, right? The world feels threatening, distorted.
And you're not seeing things clearly. And you're probably not reacting in a way that lines up with your values either.
Right. But as you practice mindfulness, as you start to recognize those patterns of just reacting, you start to clean that grime off the window a little bit. Things become clearer. And that clarity, that's what creates the space for patience, forgiveness, and compassion to come out naturally.
So it's not about being perfect or pretending everything's okay. It's about understanding yourself and others more deeply.
Exactly. For example, remember when we talked about triggers? Let's say they make a comment that really pushes your buttons. Before, you might have just reacted defensively, maybe even gotten mad. But mindfulness lets you pause and ask, what's really going on here? Underneath, what past experience or unmet need is making me react like this?
It's like you become a detective of your own mind.
Yes. And that detective work, it helps you separate what the other person does from your own emotional baggage. You start to see that maybe their behavior, it's coming from their own pain or confusion. It's not necessarily a personal attack.
Makes sense. And once you see that, it becomes easier to let go of that anger and resentment. Choose compassion instead.
Yeah, it's not about condoning their behavior, but you're not letting it control you either. You're responding with understanding, which can make things so much better in the long run.
Okay, I'm really getting how all of this can actually be used in real life. It's like meditation gives you the tools to deal with tough moments in relationships, with more skill and more grace.
And the best part, these tools, they're for everyone. You don't have to be some kind of meditation guru to benefit from them.
So where do we start? Are there specific techniques that are especially good for building these relationship skills?
There are, and that's what we'll be getting into in our final segment. We'll talk about a few simple practices that can help you cultivate mindfulness, loving kindness, and a deeper understanding of yourself and everyone around you.
All right, we're back. I'm so ready to hear about these meditation techniques that can actually help us in our relationships. We've already covered so much ground.
It is amazing what we discover when we just start paying attention to our inner world, right? And the best part, there are some simple practices that can really help us develop those qualities we were talking about. Mindfulness, compassion, and loving kindness.
Okay, tell me everything. What are some of these practices?
Well, one that's incredibly powerful, especially for relationships, is called loving kindness meditation, or sometimes it's called metta meditation.
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Isn't it a little too lovey-dovey? Like, I'm not sure I'm ready to be sending out good vibes to everyone who's ever done me wrong.
I hear you. It can sound a little cheesy at first, I'll admit, but there's real power in this practice. And it's not about forcing yourself to feel love for someone when you don't, or saying that their bad behavior is okay. It's more about cultivating this sense of goodwill, wishing well-being for yourself and others.
So how does it actually work?
You start by picturing someone you really care about, a close friend or family member. And you just repeat phrases to yourself like, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be peaceful.
Okay, that actually doesn't sound too intimidating.
See, and then you slowly expand that circle of loving kindness. You include yourself, then neutral people you come across in your day, and eventually, you even include the people who are difficult for you.
So even that coworker who, drives me totally crazy.
Yes. Even them. The idea is, by doing this, by practicing loving kindness, you're slowly breaking down those walls we all build up. Walls of anger, resentment. You create space for more compassion, more understanding.
That could be really powerful. I can see that. Are there other practices we can try?
Another really good one is mindful listening. It's about going deeper than just, hearing the words someone is saying. You tune into their tone, their body language, the emotions behind the words.
I am so guilty of planning my response in my head when someone else is talking.
Oh, we've all been there. But we can learn to quiet that inner voice, and really just be present with whoever we're with. Give them our full attention. Listen with an open heart. Try to see things from their perspective, even if we don't agree with it.
It sounds so simple, but I bet it takes a lot of effort to really be that present.
It does, but it's so worth it. When we feel truly heard, truly understood, that's what deepens connections, strengthens our relationships.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. It feels like we just scratched the surface of how we can use these Buddhist principles, to improve our relationships.
We have, but that's what's so great about it. There's always more to learn. And even the simple practices we've talked about today, they can make a huge difference in your life.
So what's one thing our listeners can take away from all of this? What can they do right now to start using what we've learned in their own lives?
I'd say start by paying attention to what's going on inside, your thoughts, your feelings, without judging yourself. And next time you have a really strong reaction to someone, just pause for a second. Ask yourself, what's going on here underneath? What's making me feel this way? That one question, that can be so powerful.
It's like taking that first step towards understanding yourself. And as we learned today, that's the key to understanding everyone else.
Exactly. And remember, you're not alone in this. There are tons of resources out there, books, articles, even meditation apps or local groups. Just start exploring and see what feels right to you.
Well, this has been a truly inspiring deep dive. Big thanks to our expert for sharing such amazing wisdom with us today. And to our listeners, keep exploring, keep practicing, and keep those waves of compassion spreading.